Let's go ahead and get started. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Muharram, night 12, inshallah. Um, thank you all for participating on these 12 nights. Alhamdulillah, with great success and your all's support. So really thank you. So we will get started with with the Ziyarat Ashura, inshallah, followed by Marcia, Majlis, Matam, and conclude the Ziyarat. So Abbas Ali, if you're ready, Bismillah.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا خيرة الله وابن خيرته السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوسيين السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا ثور الله وابن ثور والوتر الموتور السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله عبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار يا أبا عبد الله لقد عزمت الرزيات وجلت وعزمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام وجلت وعزمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات فلعن الله أمة أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم ولعن الله الممحدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم ورأيت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم يا أبا عبد الله إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبا ولعن الله ابن مرجانة ولعن الله عمر بن سعد ولعن الله شمران ولعن الله أمة عسرجت وعلجمت وتنقبت لقتالك بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عزم مصابي بك فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة يا أبا عبد الله إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونسب لك الحرب وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم وابرأوا إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم بريت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم وارزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم وصلى الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يؤتيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يؤتي مصابا بمصيبة مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد، اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وكف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنات عبد العابدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضائف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب العليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أن أول الظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله الآخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خذ أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم عن الثانية والثالثة والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمران وعلى أبي سفيان وعلى زياد وعلى مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجود. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيته. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنت. Thank you. Safter, Bismillah.
السلام على النبي.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
होश से भी ऊंचा आलम में मका जिनका आलम में मका जिनका कूफे में उन्हीं पर ये जिंदा का महन क्यों है बतलाए सितम तेरा ए चरख कहन क्यों है औलाद पयंबर की آوارہ وطن کیوں ہے بتلائے ستم تیرا میدان میں غربت کے زینب کے یہ تھے نالے زینب کے یہ تھے نالے جب بھائی چلا مرنے پھر زندہ بہن کیوں ہے بتلائے ستم تیرا برپا ہے عزا کس کی کون آیا ہے پردیسی کون آیا ہے پردیسی اس درجہ یہ تاریکی اے صبح وطن کیوں ہے بتلائے ستم تیرا کشتوں کو تو سب اپنے آدانے کیے مدفون آدانے کیے مدفون لاشیں پی سرے زہرا بے دفنا پرا کیوں ہے بتلائے ستم تیرا ایک قوم نہیں زینب کیا دختر پیغمبر کیا دختر پیغمبر عالم کی خزادی کے بازو میں رسن کیوں ہے بتلائے ستم تیرا اے چرخ کون کیوں ہے اولاد پیمبر کی آوارہ وطن کیوں ہے بتلائے ستم تیرا محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. حسن نقل بسم الله.
Thank you. بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. زینب نے کہا باپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، اب آئے ہو بابا. زینب نے کہا باپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، اب آئے ہو بابا. جب لٹ گیا پردیس میں اماں کا بڑا گھر، اماں کا بھرا گھر، اب آئے ہو بابا. زینب نے کہا باپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، بابا اگر آنا ہی تھا خالق کی رضا سے، اس وقت نہ آئے، اس وقت نہ آئے، جب خاک پہ دم توڑ رہا تھا میرا اکبر. اب آئے ہو بابا. زینب نے کہا باپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، کٹ کٹ کے گری نہر پر جب بازوئے عباس، اور کوئی نہ تھا پاس، اور کوئی نہ تھا پاس. اس وقت صدا آپ کو دیتا تھا دلاور، اب آئے ہو بابا. زینب نے کہا آپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، جب بھائی کا سر کٹ رہا تھا میں دیکھ رہی تھی، حضرت کو صدا دی، حضرت کو صدا دی. سر کھولے ہوئے روتی تھی میں خیمے کے در پر، اب آئے ہو بابا. زینب نے کہا آپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، جب بالی سکینہ کے گوہر ہین رہے تھے، لگتا تھا تماچا، لگتا تھا تماچا. حسرت سے مجھے دیکھ رہی تھی وہ بے بانوئے مزتر، اب آئے ہو بابا. زینب نے کہا باپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، اب آئے ہو بابا. زینب نے کہا باپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر، اب آئے ہو بابا. جب لٹ گیا پردیس میں اماں کا بھرا گھر، اب آئے ہو بابا. پر محمد وآل.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اقرأ نقل بسم الله.
صلو علی النبی.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
یہ میں ہوں میں میری تنہائی، یہ تماشائی، لو آئی 11 محرم ہے، کیا خبر لائی. چلیے جان میں زندہ तुम्हारी माँ जाई। सवार हमने किया था तुम्हें मेरे भाई, अब आओ या मुझे कह दो न इंतजार करूं। उठो हुसैन बहन को जरा सवार करो। उठो हुसैन बहन को जरा सवार करो। सवार हमने किया था तुम्हें दमे रुखसर, लगाम थाम की मैंने भलाए दे तेरी कर। कहाँ गई वो मोहब्बत, कहाँ गई चाहत, अमाम अपना मेरे सर पे सायाबार करो। उठो हुसैन बहन को जरा सवार करो। वतन से दूर हूँ कुछ और दूर जाती हूँ। उठो उठो मेरे भैया तुम्हें जगाती हूँ। कोई भी आता नहीं है किसे बुलाती हूँ। करार तब मेरे मुझको बेकरार करो। उठो हुसैन बहन को जरा सवार करो। सफर मदीन से कैसा ये सफर क्या है, न महमिले है न होजत न कोई बरपा है। सर में ख्वाब ये करबो बला का सेहरा है, न जी सकूंगी तेरे बाद एतबार करो। उठो हुसैन बहन को जरा सवार करो। मैं आऊंगी मेरे भैया जरूर आऊंगी, कफन उड़ाऊंगी मरकज तेरा बनाऊंगी। जहां भी जाऊंगी फर्शे अज़ा बिछाऊंगी। मैं कैद खान से लौटाऊं इंतजार करो। उठो हुसैन बहन को जरा सवार करो। रगों में खून बदन में जो सांस जारी है, तुम्हारे सरवरो रहमान जिम्मेदारी है। जहां जहां मेरे भाई की पुरसदारी है, तुम अपने नौह से दुनिया को सोगवार करो। उठो हुसैन बहन को जरा सवार करो। अब आओ या मुझे कह दो न इंतजार करूं, उठो हुसैन बहन को जरा सवार। सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि नबी।
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
سورة المباركة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. لقد جاءت رسول ربنا بالحق. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا والنبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وبآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. وصل على صاحب الدعوة النبوية وصولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والصبر السجادية وآثار الباقرية ومؤاسر الصادقية وعلوم الكاظمية وحجج رضوية وجود التقوية والنقاوة النقوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية والقائمة بالحق. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد. Before we continue with tonight's discussion, the last of the series, I would first like to perhaps present a brief summary of what we've been discussing over the past few nights. We started off the discussion, and we'll also end the discussion with the discussion about Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Some of the topics that we've discussed in between the nights comprise of, for instance, dedicating the Friday to discussing a topic on Imam Zamana, his first representative. We've discussed on Tawbah, sincere repentance, Tawakkul, and actions. We've discussed social lessons from Imam Hussein alayhi salam, leadership lessons from the letter of Malik al-Ashtar, from Imam Ali to Malik Ashtar, visioning and Hazrat Abbas. And on Ashura night, we also discussed the importance of critical thinking within our lives. Having said that, I would also like to take the opportunity to extend my gratitude to the community of the Shia Ithna Ashari Islamic community Jamaat of Los Angeles, to have extended me with this honor, this privilege, and the opportunity to do the dhikr of Allah Abdullah and Hussein for the past few nights. At the same time, I would like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to the entire management committee, especially, of course, Hasnain Bhai, for being a point of liaison and point of contact and making this whole experience very, very enjoyable and a very, very smooth one. Having said that, of course, special thanks to also for the brilliant and amazing sessions, the way that they've been organized. Alhamdulillah, they've always worked clockwork, even though we are virtually. I think, I'm sure you'll all agree, they've all worked tremendously well. So for the benefit and for the long life and for the blessings for all those that have made this possible, and for all of the participants, may I please request a very loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. And therefore, we now begin with tonight's discussion again being the final night, I would like to dedicate it to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. On the 10th day of Muharram, at the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein alayhi salam lets out a cry. He lets out a cry that is still relevant to us till today. He calls out, ala hal min nasiri yansurna, ala hal min mu'inin yu'inuna, ala hal min dhabin yadhubbu an harami Rasulullah. Is there any supporter to support me? Is there anyone to aid me? Is there anyone to help the children and the women of Rasulullah? Imam Hussein alayhi salam turns direction and he repeats the call 4 times meticulously. The call of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was a call that he raised out to all of his companions and family members had already crossed the line. So it begs the question that who is it that Imam Hussein alayhi salam made this call to, which reverberates until today? Imam Hussein alayhi salam's call was a call of action, and it's a call that's relevant today as it was back then, which is why there is no surprise. Even in Ziyarat Ashura, we recite, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum fa'afuza fawzan azima. If only I too had been with you on that day, I too would have enjoyed and joined in the great success. So what is this saying? When we recite this line in Ziyarat Ashura, we say that surely if I was there with you, I too would have joined you in the battle of truth against falsehood. I too would have joined you in the battle of freedom against oppression. I too would have joined you in the battle of good versus evil. However, of course, we weren't there at that time to respond to the call of Imam Hussein alayhi salam at the plains of Karbala. However, we are here today to answer the call of Hussein of this day and age, Imam al-Mahdi ajallahu ta'ala faraja, when he asks, is there anyone out to help him? Therefore, the mission that started with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the uprising that started with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the revolution that started with Imam Hussein alayhi salam is a revolution that will end with the revolution of Imam al-Mahdi ajallahu ta'ala faraja. You see, the relationship that Imam al-Mahdi had with Imam Hussein alayhi salam is a very special one. It's the continuation of the same message, it's the continuation of the exact same revolution. In fact, a tradition from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi, sheds light into this, who says that the slogan of those ashab and ansar of Imam al-Mahdi at the time of his reappearance will be Ya Nitharat al-Hussein, vengeance on vengeance for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Therefore, one of the major characteristics within the ashab, within the ansar of Imam al-Mahdi is that they will have intense, immense love for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Therefore, we see that the call that was made 14 centuries ago, the response is valid up until today for the Imam of our time. The Imam of our time, through many traditions, also greatly commemorates for Aba Abdullah. It has been recorded in Fawaid al-Rajaliya by Shaykh Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum. It's been recorded that one day Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum, an authority at that time, a huge scholar at the time, was walking with a group of students in the streets of Karbala. Whilst they were walking, they came across a group of mourners that were passionately, vigorously beating their chests out of their azar of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So as the students looked at those group of mourners with some level of scorn on how they were performing ma'tam in an undignified manner, so passionately, they couldn't help but notice Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum at that time himself takes off his turban, takes off his amama, unbuttons his top button from his collar, and he also joins the group of mourners passionately beating his own chest. At that point, his students tried to stop him and control him, but of course, to no success. When the group of mourners left and Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum, they were able to kind of contain him. They asked him as to what had overcome him, that he too joined the group of mourners and so passionately and vigorously beat his own chest. So Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum, one of the greatest scholars of the time, he states that how could I not do the same that I saw my Imam doing? When I went close to the group of mourners, I saw my Imam his head was uncovered, and he was grieving upon my grandfather, Imam Hussein, and doing matam with the rest of them. SubhanAllah, brothers and sisters, when we beat our chest, when we perform matam, we remember that this is also an action that is partaken by the Imam of our time. He also joins the ranks of those who also passionately beat their chest for lamenting over Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Who is Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum? You see, Sayyid Mahdi, he doesn't always have the title of Bahrul Ulum, which means an ocean of knowledge. Bahrul Ulum was not always known as the ocean of knowledge. In fact, we can say that this is a gift bestowed upon Sayyid Mahdi by the Imam himself. You see, Bahrul Ulum was a very regular scholar who, I'm sure as you'll all agree, as a regular scholar, he had trouble understanding his notes and memorizing his notes. However, it so happened that one day he invoked the Imam of our time so much that once he had the opportunity to meet him, and the Imam hugged him so tight that since that day he started becoming and absorbing the knowledge. In fact, it was a time that he was known as Bahrul Ulum, the ocean of knowledge. Similarly, crying for Aba Abdullah, mourning for him, lamenting over him, shedding tears for Aba Abdullah is a practice, is a tradition that is also partaken by the Imam of our time. In fact, we have traditions that the Imam himself cries, weeps on Aba Abdullah morning and evening, and weeps blood in place of tears. He makes his declaration in his own ziyarah, in Ziyarat Nahiyah, where the Imam states, but as I have been hindered by the course of time, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree has prevented me, and because I was not able to fight those who fought you, I was not able to show hostility towards those who showed hostility to you, I will therefore lament you morning and evening, and we weep blood in place of tears out of my anguish and sorrow for all that befell you. And given the importance of this very Ziyarat Nahiyah, and given the content which is included as part of this Ziyarat, the topic of discussion that I have titled for tonight's discussion, for the remaining discussion, is titled An Exposition on Ziyarat Nahiyah, and a discussion on Ziyarat Nahiyah, inshallah. Ziyarat Nahiyah is a ziyarat that has come from the Imam himself, from one of his deputies, and has been recorded in Al-Mazar of Shaykh al-Mufid. It is a ziyarat where the Imam of our time graphically describes the events of that day. He describes the calamities and the tragedies that befell not only on Aba Abdullah, but also his families and his companions. And therefore, while starting the discussion on Ziyarat Nahiyah, scholars have divided this ziyarat into 10 main parts. And so tonight we will discuss some of those main themes that have emanated from this beautiful ziyarat. One of the first things that the Imam begins his Ziyarat Nahiyah, is by offering peace, salam, salutations to the prophets, whose spiritual heir was no doubt Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So this ziyarat begins by sending salams to prophets such as Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, Nuh alayhi salam, Sheikh. So given that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is the spiritual inheritor of all of these prophets, let us spend the first few moments of this discussion trying to understand the connection that Imam Aba Abdullah had with these prophets. We'll start, for example, with Prophet Adam alayhi salam. Prophet Adam alayhi salam, for instance, is the father of humanity. He was the first human on earth to populate mankind. Similarly, if we take a look at Imam Hussein alayhi salam's life, especially his journey from the time he left his city Medina, and from the time he was martyred on the 10th of Muharram, we see how Imam Hussein alayhi salam demonstrated what a human can be like. On a human level, I'd like you to all imagine how difficult the day of Ashura must have been for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Just imagine think about that day as a father, as a brother, as an uncle, as a friend as a companion. However, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, even on that day, stood at the peak, a pinnacle of humanity, unrivaled by any example of history. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam had no one beside him, when Habib, Muslim, Akbar, Qasim, even Asghar was no more, Imam Hussein alayhi salam cries for the enemy. When the enemy asked Imam Hussein, why is it that you're crying? Imam Hussein alayhi salam would respond to them that I'm crying for you. Why are you sending yourselves to hellfire because of me? SubhanAllah, Imam Hussein alayhi salam has all of his loved ones killed, and he knows what is going to happen to himself. But at that time, Imam Hussein alayhi salam demonstrates to us the true human potential. He cries for his own enemies. Even though he went through so much, he demonstrates to us, illustrates to us at what potential a human can reach. This is Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura. For example, similarly, if we take the story of Nuh and the comparison of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we see that the message of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam was a universal, a worldwide, a global message. What do we mean? You see, many prophets would come to a nation, and many nations have also been destroyed, as can be seen from the Holy Quran. However, if we look at the story of Nuh alayhi salam, we see that the flood that was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only submerged a nation, but it submerged the entire world of that time. So for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to submerge an entire world with a flood must mean that Nuh alayhi salam, through his 950 years of preaching the message of Allah, it must mean that his message would have also gone to every populated corner of the world. And therefore we see that the message of Nuh alayhi salam was a universal message that reached every populated corner of the world. And it's the flood that Allah sent which changed the entire world. Similarly, at a similar spirit, if we look at the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, right after the events of Karbala transpired, we see that even at that point, it had a ripple effect on, for example, cities such as Kufa, Baghdad, Medina, Makkah, Samarra, and of course, it eventually led to the downfall of the Umayyad regime. But if we look at it from a more global perspective, from a more generic outlook, we see that even the message of Abdullah, his revolution was a worldwide revolution. It's not confined to a single group of people. We see that his inspiration, his revolution has inspired many around the world already and continues to make an impact and influence thousands upon millions around the world till today. And so, just like Nuh's message was universal, Hussein's revolution was also global. We turn to Prophet Ibrahim, for instance, we see that if we look at the life of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and what he stands for, the beauty of Abraham is that he is the father of all revealed religions, for example, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And we see more holistically, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam is known as the father of monotheism. You see, if we look into the life of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, we see that constantly Prophet Ibrahim would try to liberate the people, would try and liberate them. For example, we all know the story of how, for example, Ibrahim alayhi salam, when all of his village had gone, he breaks off all of the idols and places the axe, places the weapon at the hands of the big idol. And when the village questioned him why he did what he did, he tried and challenged them. He tried to make them think more freely, more liberated. Here we see that Ibrahim tried to challenge them intellectually and spiritually. And again, if we look at the life of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, one of the titles that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is being given is the title of Abul Ahrar, the father of the absolute free people. Hur, for instance, means free. Ahrar means absolutely free. And so we see from the entire mission of him, even Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his mission was to free the people, liberate them. His mission was to reverberate the society so that people understand it. Even though those people would say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, their hearts at the end of the day had become darkened. So they needed to be liberated, they needed to be free. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam, even on the day of Ashura, makes multiple sermons to them, telling them, think about what you've just done. In one of his quotes that is being narrated, even from his sermon, is, even if you do not have any religion, even if you do not believe in the day of judgment, be at least free to think. And this is what Imam Hussein wanted to do. And so when we look into Ziyarat Nahiya, we see that Imam al-Mahdi begins by sending salutations to so many of the prophets, which show us and prove to us that how Imam Hussein had a connection with all of them as being their spiritual heir. If we move on to another theme that's being discussed within Ziyarat Nahiya, we see that after sending salams to the prophets, the Imam continues by sending salam to Imam Hussein himself. He enumerates, he describes some of the qualities of Aba Abdullah and some of his titles. For instance, in a specific segment of the Ziyarat Nahiya, Imam Mahdi describes the benefit that's within the soil of where Imam Hussein is buried, the soil of Karbala. And he also enumerates the merits of the place where Imam Hussein alayhi salam has been buried under the dome. For example, Imam al-Mahdi states, peace be upon whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed a cure in this soil of his place of martyrdom. Peace be upon the one under whose dome answers to supplication is guaranteed. So, subhanAllah, what beautiful, two powerful statements that the Imam of our time himself is making. Here the Imam states the merits of the soil of Karbala. He states the merits of the dome under the place of his burial, and there is no doubt, of course, there are so many benefits in the visitation of the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and these merits have been recorded in numerous traditions, numerous books, and numerous traditions and literature. Allama ibn Qulway is an author of a book by the name of Kamil al-Ziyarat. Kamil al-Ziyarat is another piece of literature which has so many traditions about the merits of visiting all of our A'immah, especially Imam Hussein alayhi salam. In fact, Ayatullah Abul Qasim al-Khu'i has stated that the significance of this tradition, the significance of the traditions mentioned within Kamil al-Ziyarat of Allama ibn Qulway is so much that he's declared that each and every tradition from this book is to be taken as authentic, as to be taken as sahih. Some of the themes, for example, that emanate from Kamil al-Ziyarat of Allama ibn Qulway is that the ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is equal to Mustahab Hajj, is equal to Hajj and Umrah. And in fact, there are other traditions which say that no, it's better than 70 Hajj, 70 Umrah, and in fact, much better than that. For example, other traditions we have about the ziyarat of Imam Hussein is that it's the cause of forgiveness of sins. For instance, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq says that Lady Fatima, Sayyidah Fatima, go praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on everyone who visits Imam Hussein alayhi salam and seeks forgiveness to Allah directly on our behalf. Another merit of the ziyarat of Imam Hussein is that it's the cause of the acceptance of a dua, and those individuals that have performed the ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam are also given the power and authority to intercede, shafa'at, on behalf of other individuals. And Imam al-Mahdi specifically mentions how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed merits, has placed benefits in the soil and the cure within the soil of Imam Hussein. And if we see from the traditions that we have, not just the soil of the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but also the soil that has touched the pilgrims of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Let me narrate to you a beautiful story that illustrates just this. Shaheed al-Mutahari narrates that throughout his life, Ayatollah Burujardi is the scholar who once led the seminary in Qom after Ayatollah Ha'iri passed away. Ayatollah Burujardi is also buried within the shrine of Lady Mahsuma. So Ayatollah Burujardi, Shaykh Mutahari says that Ayatollah Burujardi never in his life needed glasses. He had extremely good eyesight, and when people asked Ayatollah Burujardi as to the secret of his strong eyes, Ayatollah Burujardi narrates an incident from his early days. He states that when I was 18 years of age, I became extremely ill and I started to lose my eyesight. within my heart, I had this wish, I had this goal that I really wanted to serve in the halls. I really wanted to study and serve Islam. So he says that I repeatedly beseeched the Imam of our time to restore my eyesight. And it so happened, and I recited Zakat Waritha for 40 days consecutively. It so happened that the Imam of my time came in my dreams, and he says that go and wipe the dust of those pilgrims that have visited the shrine of Imam Aba Abdullah. You see, it's very common when you go towards the mourners, when you go to the Zari of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to throw dirt and throw sand onto the mourners of Aba Abdullah. So Ayatollah Jaldi says that through my procession of going to the Zari of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, I took some of those dust, not of the grave of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, but the dust that had touched the mourners of Aba Abdullah, and I placed it on my eyes. I rubbed that dust from the mourners on my eyes. And he says that my eyesight was completely restored, that Shaheed Mutahari narrates that even in his 80s, he would not need glasses, and he was able to read even the fine newsprint in dim new light. This is the status of those individuals that mourn for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. We, even sitting in this very gathering, are honored and privileged, for indeed no one is able to get an opportunity to sit within such gatherings of light except that they are invited by the Lady of Light, Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha. And so we see that every drop of tear that falls even from our eyes has so much barakah, has so much blessing around it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all of the sins of an individual that has tears dropping from his eyes. So this was one of the second themes that Imam al-Mahdi Ajallahu ta'ala Farajah discusses within Ziyarat Nahiya, which is the benefits of the soil and seeking forgiveness under the dome of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Moving this a little bit swiftly forward, within Ziyarat Nahiya, after describing the qualities of Imam Hussain, his own titles, his own merits, Imam al-Mahdi continues, and he continues to send the peace and blessings and salutations to the martyrs of Karbala, the companions of Karbala, of Imam Hussain, the family members, as well as the women and the children that supported Imam Hussain alayhi salam. There is no doubt that the companions of Aba Abdullah, the family members of Aba Abdullah that he had supporting him in Karbala, were one of the most loyal, faithful and supportive companions. Imam Sajjad himself says that on the night of Ashura, when I was bedridden, I was ill, I was sick, I observed that my father had gathered his family and companions beside him, and he says, "O people of my family, O people of my Shia, O my believers, consider this night which has come to you as a mountain camel, and go save yourself, for these people don't desire to kill anyone except me, and if they kill me, they won't be pursuing you. May Allah have mercy upon all of you. Go save yourselves. Verily, I lift the responsibility of allegiance and pledge that you have taken at my hand." In fact, one of the traditions says that Imam Hussain alayhi salam would also say to those people, "Go take one of my family members, so when you go out there tomorrow, people don't accuse you of leaving me. Instead, you can use the excuse, the reason that you've actually saved one of my family members." And he even lifted his allegiance from them. At that point, many would renew their allegiance to Imam Hussain. Hazrat Abbas, for example, on behalf of the family of Ali and his brothers, said to him, to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, "Why is it so that you wish that we survive you after death? May Allah never keep us alive for us to see that day." A companion, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, for example, even he declared, he professes his allegiance. He says, "By Allah, I swear that even if I was to be killed and then revived and then killed, and if this to me is done 1,000 times, if it is to save you, I would happily sacrifice my life so that it's able to save you." These were the martyrs of Karbala that supported Aba Abdullah. No doubt, no wonder that Imam Hussain alayhi salam himself praises the companions and family by saying that I have never known any companions more loyal, more favorable than my own companions, and I've never known any family members more regardful and pious than my own family members. And with this description, he denies any companions better than his companions, not in the past, not in the future. And therefore the martyrs of Karbala, the companions of Abu Abdullah, and those that supported Imam Hussein alayhi salam have become immortal within the hearts of millions, but also within the heart, within these words of Ziyarat Nahiya, through the words of the Imam himself. There is no doubt that there is a strong relationship that exists between Imam al-Mahdi, Ajrallahu ta'ala faraja, and between Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam himself states that I pray for any believer who remembers the sufferings of my martyred grandfather al-Hussein, and also prays for my relief, prays for faraj. If we see dua nutba is again a very common dua that we recite, a supplication that we recite on Friday, exclusively related to Imam of our time. You see, along with the remembrance of the Imam of our time, this dua also refers to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Pay attention to the following words. For example, what do we recite? We say, Ayn al-Hassan, Ayn al-Hussein, Ayn abna al-Hussein. Where is Hassan? Where is Hussein? Where are the sons of Hussein? And then Imam Hussein alayhi salam is especially remembered in this manner through Imam al-Mahdi. Ayn al-Talibu bidam al-Maqtul bi Karbala. Where is that who is to avenge the blood of the innocent martyrs of Karbala? Therefore, in Dua Nutba, along with the memory of Imam Zamana, the memory of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is revived and renewed every Friday. And so this was some of the themes that we've discussed that emanate from Ziyarat Nahiya. For example, sending salutations to the Prophet whose spiritual heir was Imam Hussein alayhi salam, offering salutations to Imam Hussein alayhi salam that enumerate and state the benefits and blessings of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And we also discussed briefly on how Imam al-Mahdi remembers the martyrs and the companions of Karbala. In order to kind of bring this discussion to a close briefly, I'd like to share with you something that Shaykh Haji Danishmand had also stated. Let me ask you a question. Who is it that's more ghareeb, more lonely? Is it Imam Hussein Abu Abdullah, the son of Fatima, or is it Mahdi Zahra, the grandson of Fatima, who is more lonely? Is Imam Hussein more lonely, or is Imam al-Zamana more ghareeb? And Shaykh Haji Danishmand proposes that no, actually it's the Imam of our time. If we look into it, if we ponder it, Imam of our time that is a lot more ghareeb than Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Why? You see, Hussein is Sayyid al-Shuhada. He's the leader of all martyrs. That's correct. Hussein was also killed unjustly. Abu Abdullah was killed without any sin. He was martyred. Yes, that's also correct. However, if we think about it, Abu Abdullah had Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Who is the Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas of the 12th Imam? Abu Abdullah had Qasim to support him. Who is the Qasim of our Imam? Abu Abdullah had Akbar, Muhammad. If we think about it, who are the Qasim, who are the Akbar, and Muhammad for our Imam? At the end of the day, who does our Imam have? Who can our Imam rely on? Is the Imam of our time relying on me and you? Just like Abu Abdullah had Abbas and Akbar by his side. The question that I ask myself, invite you to do the same, is who does the Imam have to support him? Are me and you the support which our Imam can rely upon? You see, from the time of the Prophet to the birth of the Imam, it took just over 255 years. And to the declaration of the Imamate of our time, it took approximately just over 260 years. But at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, it took 260 years for 13 Ma'sumeens to come to this world, be killed and martyred and depart from this world. But our Imam, the Imam of our time, has been alive. He's been alone, he's been ghareeb for over 1200 years. And therefore, is the Mahdi of our time not more lonely, not more ghareeb than Abu Abdullah? And therefore, a question that we must ask ourselves and invite you to do the same is, how is it that I can support my Imam of my time? How is it that I can be the Abbas, the Akbar, the the Muhammad, the Habib, the Muslim that Abu Abdullah had? How can I do that for my own Imam? Brothers and sisters, tonight, before we move on to the Masa'ib, let us discuss some of the musibah that fell upon Abu Abdullah al-Hussein from the words of our Imam himself. Imam al-Mahdi in Ziyarat Nahiya himself describes the calamities, describes the afflictions that befell on Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Brothers and sisters, let me present to you the musibah of Aba Abdullah through the words of al-Mahdi. Imam al-Mahdi states, As-salamu ala al-gharib al-ghuraba, As-salamu ala shaheed al-shuhada. Imam al-Mahdi states, peace be upon the loneliest of the lonely, peace be upon the greatest martyrs of all the martyrs. And that the Imam remembers all of the martyrs of Karbala. He says, peace be upon the dismembered limbs, peace be upon the heads raised upon the lances, peace be upon you and your martyred sons. The Imam of our time then graphically and in great detail describes the calamity of the day. The Imam states, وَالشِّمْرُ جَالِسٌ عَلَى صَدْرِكَ. He states at that time, Shimra was sitting upon your chest, quenching his sword with the blood of your throat, grabbing your beard with his hand as he slew you with his sword. Imam states, as your faculties faded, your breath became shallow and seized, and your head was raised upon a spear. The Imam says, As-salamu ala shayb al-khadib, As-salamu ala al-khadd al-tarib, As-salamu ala al-badan al-salib. The Imam of our time states, peace be upon the grey hair that was dyed with blood. Peace be upon the cheek that struck the dust. Peace be upon the butchered body. Peace be upon the front teeth that were beaten with a rod. Peace be upon that head that was raised upon a lance. We send our salams, we send our salutations to the Gharib Imam of our time. Assalamu alayka, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, O the Imam of our time. May peace and blessings be upon you. أحسن الله لك العزاء في جدك الحسين. May our condolence be upon you on the martyrdom of your grandfather, Aba Abdullah. Brothers and sisters, if Ali al-Akbar was not enough, then Hussein gave his Qasim. If Qasim was not enough, then Hussein gave his Abbas. He even gave his 6-month-old infant Ali al-Asghar. But the dhulm that occurred on Aba Abdullah did not end with the death of Aba Abdullah. They focused their attention to the family of Aba Abdullah. They focused their attention on the daughters of Ali and Zahra, on the 4-year-old Yatima of Hussein. They say that Khuli was one of the first to bring the head of Aba Abdullah into Kufa. The same night as the day of Ashura had finished, he took the head of Aba Abdullah and he was dispatched to Kufa. When Khuli came into the city of Kufa, he saw that the gates of the castle of Ibn Ziyad were closed. He wasn't able to go inside, so he brings the head of Hussein into his house. He places the head of Aba Abdullah within the oven, and then he goes into his room. He goes into bed. His wife wakes up. She says, Khuli, where have you been? Khuli says, let it be, I had some work. His wife insists. She says, Khuli, no, tell me, where have you gone? Khuli says, look, we were in Karbala doing something for Yazid. Don't worry about it. You go to sleep. The wife goes to sleep. A short while later, as Khuli himself falls asleep, she wakes up crying. She holds on to Khuli. She says, Khuli, tell me, what is it that you did? He says, why? What is it to you? She says, why is it that every time I sleep, Zahra comes into my dreams? She says, why? What is it that Hussein did to your Khuli? Why is it that Khuli took whatever he took from us? She says, Khuli, what is it that you did to Hussein? Where is Hussein? Khuli says, we killed Hussein in Karbala. I have brought the head of Hussein within our house. She says, what is it that Zahra says that you took from the Ahlul Bayt? What is it that you stole from the Ahlul Bayt? Khuli says, that night when we killed Hussein, the same night the tents were burning, I saw a young girl running out. She was so afraid. I saw 2 earrings from her ears. I thought to myself that I'll take these earrings from her and give it to my daughter. I said to her, girl, remove your earrings. Girl, remove your earrings. She was afraid. She was very young. I said to her, remove your earrings, as her hands would shake, and she wasn't able to take off her earrings. She was afraid. I was impatient. I went to her. I removed them. Her hands shook. She was unable to remove them. I ripped it from her ears. Brothers and sisters, when we look at the day of the 11th of Muharram, when we look at the 11th of Muharram, the dhulm that was done on Aba Abdullah, the dhulm that was done on the Ahlul Bayt, they say when all of the shuhadas were martyred, they started counting the heads of the shuhadas. They counted the head of Hussein, they counted the head of Akbar, they counted the head of Qasim, Own, and Muhammad. But one says that one head is less. Umar bin Sa'ad says, where is the head of the 6-month-old infant of Hussein? A man says that on Asr Ashur, I saw Hussein bury the 6-month-old infant behind the tent. The man says, as soon as I said this, I regretted this for the rest of my life. Why? Umar bin Sa'ad orders men with spears to go striking that patch of area. Imagine the scene. Spears are being struck on the ground of Karbala. Rabab is watching. Zainab is watching. Sakina is watching. One Mal'oon strikes his spear on the ground of Karbala. The whole body of Asghar comes out. I do not have the strength, nor do I have the ability to narrate to you how he separates the body from the head in front of a mother. But know that they raised the head of Ali al-Asghar high upon a spear. Sakina, she screams out, oh Aunt Zainab, every shaheed, every martyred companion was martyred once, but alas, my brother, he's been martyred twice. Yes, brothers and sisters, these are the calamities of Aba Abdullah's family. Now, the heads are cut, the heads have been raised upon a spear. They call Sajjad to come forward. Sajjad comes forward. He is chained around his arms. He is chained around his legs. And they bring a collar. They bring a chain for his neck. Do you know the type of chain that he had? The chains of Arabia would normally have thorns pricking outside, but this collar, this chain was one that had thorns within the chains. They say they don't put the chain around Sajjad. They don't open the lock. No, how was he made to wear the chain? This chain was lowered from his neck to his neck. May my life be sacrificed for that face that was bruised. It says that whenever Sajjad would lift his head, he would be pricked by the thorns. Whenever he would lower his head, he would be pricked by the thorns. They say that when the family of Aba Abdullah reaches Medina, Sajjad and the woman folk are in Medina, one of the first ones to come and welcome and pay condolences to the family is a man by the name of Muhammad Hanafiya. He comes in, he says, he sees that there are old ladies, but he says there must be my nephew Sajjad must also be there, but he's unable to see anyone young. Yes, he sees one man, a man who seems to be old, a man whose back was bent, whose hair had become white, who had wrinkles in his face. Muhammad Hanafiya says, oh man, tell me, have you seen my younger nephew Sajjad? Sajjad calls out in a meek voice, Uncle Hanafiya, Ana Ali ibn al-Hussein, this is your nephew Hussein. Muhammad Hanafiya suddenly grabs hold of him, he hugs him, but as soon as he hugs him, Sajjad raises his voice, Ah, uncle, hug me, but hug me slowly, for the webs of Shimmer and the chains of Yazid still hurt me, they still pain me. Brothers, each of the women are ordered to mount upon the camel. Zainab helps each and every woman mount upon the camel. She helps Kulthum, she helps Fidda, she helps Rabab. But now, when everyone is mounted upon the camel, Nazarat Shimala wa Yamina, there was that time when Zainab in Medina wanted to mount upon her camel. Akbar was by her side, Abbas was by her side, Aoun, Muhammad, Qasim were all by her side. But in Karbala, Akbar is no more, Abbas is no more. Zainab looks towards the right, she looks towards the left. Wa Abbasa, wa Akbara, where are you? Will you not be mounting Zainab upon the camel? And her voice was heard of chains jingling. Sajjad comes forward. He helps Zainab mount upon the camel. Now, what do these Mal'ooneen do? Instead of taking the daughters of Ali and Zahra, instead of taking the daughters of Hussein around the battlefield, they take the daughters of Ali and Zahra through the battlefield. Zainab looks at the body of Abbas. The ladies look at the body of Qasim, the bodies of Akbar, Aoun, and Muhammad. From a distance, Zainab looks towards a body that is completely covered in arrow. They say Imam Hussein's body looked like a hedgehog. She looks from a distance. She drops from her horse. Let me remind you, Zainab's hand were tied behind her neck. Abbas, when he fell from the horse, he had no arms. Zainab, at the same way, falls from her camel with her hands behind her neck. She walks towards the body of Abu Abdullah. She sits down. She cries out, "Oh, my grandfather, the angels of the heavens would send salams to you. Here lies Hussein alone and on the plains of Karbala, his amama and clothing snatched away from his body, his limbs removed from his body, and your daughters being taken as captives." على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم يا حسين يا حسين
يا حسين
Ya Hussein,
يا حسين
Ya Hussein.
ومحمدا ومصيبتا ومحمدا ومصيبتا بنت فاطمة در پھری شیخ سر کٹارن میں بے خطا بنت فاطمہ در پھری ومحمدا ومصیبتا ومحمدا ومصیبتا بنت فاطمہ
در پھری
دیکھ کر جسے مہر تک چھپے بیریدا کرے اے فلک اسے دیکھ کر جسے مہر تک چھپے بیریدا کرے اے فلک اسے روح مصطفیٰ جان مرتضیٰ بنت فاطمہ در بدر پھری ومحمدا ومصیبتا ومحمدا ومصیبتا بنت فاطمہ
در پھری
قرد غم سے منہ سب عطا ہوا دیکھے بھائی کا سر کٹا ہوا گرد غم سے منہ سب عطا ہوا دیکھے بھائی کا سر کٹا ہوا شہر شام میں ہو کے بیریدا بنت فاطمہ در بدر پھری ومحمدا
ومصيبة ومحمدا
ومصيبتا
بنت فاطمة در بدر فری
سر پیش نہیں مجتبا نہیں مرتضی نہیں مصطفیٰ نہیں سر پیش نہیں مجتبا نہیں مرتضی نہیں مصطفیٰ نہیں ہو کے بے نوا کیوں نہ پھر بھلا بنت فاطمہ در بدر پھری وا محمدا وا مصیبتا وا محمدا وا
ومصيبة بنت
فاطمہ
فاطمة در بدر فری
زلزلے میں ہو کیوں نہ نئے نوا کیوں نہ پھر ہلے دشت کربلا زلزلے میں ہو کیوں نہ نئے نوا کیوں نہ پھر ہلے دشت کربلا ہائے فوج کی چھین لے ردا بنت فاطمہ در بدر پھری وا محمدا
ومصيبة
وا محمدا وا مصیبتا
ومصيبة
بنت
بنت
فاطمہ
فاطمة
در بدر
در بدر
پھری
فری
یا حسین
Ya Hussein.
بھول جائیں گے ہر غم بھول جائیں گے ہر غم غم تیرا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا نہ بھولیں گے بھول جائیں گے ہر غم بھول جائیں گے ہر غم غم تیرا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا
نہ بھولیں گے
کیسے بھول جائے مقتل حسین کو کیسے بھول جائے فاطمہ کے بہن کو کیسے بھول جائے مقتل حسین کو کیسے بھول جائے فاطمہ کے بہن کو باخدا نہ بھولیں گے باخدا نہ بھولیں گے غم تیرا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا
نہ بھولیں گے
کربلا نہ بھولیں
بھولیں
گے
گے
کربلا
نہ بھولیں گے
وہ ستم و ظلم و جفا کے سلسلے الکما کے سامنے بیان جل گئے وہ ستم و ظلم و جفا کے سلسلے الکما کے سامنے خیام جل گئے نئے نوا نہ بھولیں گے نئے نوا نہ بھولیں گے غم تیرا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا
نہ بھولیں گے
کربلا نہ
نہ بھولیں گے
کربلا نہ بھولیں گے کربلا
کربلا نہ بھولیں گے
جس جگہ حسین کا جواں ہوا شہید جس جگہ ہوا تھا ایک بے زباں شہید جس جگہ حسین کا جواں ہوا شہید جس جواں ہوا تھا ایک بے زباں شہید वो जहां न भूलेंगे, वो जहां न भूलेंगे, गम तेरा न भूलेंगे, करबला न भूलेंगे, करबला
न भूलेंगे,
भूल जाएंगे हर गम, भूल जाएंगे
हर
गम, गम
हम
तेरा
तेरा
न
न
भूलेंगे,
भूलेंगे,
करबला न भूलेंगे, करबला न भूलेंगे, करबला न भूलेंगे, करबला न
न भूलेंगे।
या हुसैन,
Ya Hussein,
हुसैन।
Ya Hussein. Surah Mubarak al-Fatiha. Inshallah, before we conclude, we just have a short message from our president, Dr. Mohsen Ali.
Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. You all saw me on the first day of the Majalis by Shaykh Muhammad Ali Muraj when I came to welcome and introduce him to you. Today, I'm back here to bid him farewell and thank him on behalf of all the listeners and the community. It was a pleasure to have you here, Shaykh, in this novel virtual medium. Had you been here personally, you would have gotten to know us individually. Inshallah, one day that opportunity may arise when you grace us with your presence here in Los Angeles. I will paraphrase some of your remarks when you said that Allah does not bestow anything on you just for the asking. We have all have got to work towards gaining and receiving his benevolence, mercy, and compassion. To be a great leader, one needs to be truthful, honest, and sincere. Take home points, Imam Ali's letter to Malik-e-Ashtar, to rule with fairness, avoid racism, backbiting, and nepotism. We must have a vision in our lives and a sense of purpose, a valuable tool for our youths of today. We must think reasonably, keep an open mind so as not to make any irrational decisions. We all, in our own ways, gained some knowledge from your oratory skills and knowledge. We thank you for that. May I remind you all that because we are broadcasting dually on Zoom and YouTube, we have reached an extended audience. The following remarks are directed to your son, Master Taqi Abbas, whose debut with us with an original poem in rap style perked our interest. May Allah give you greater confidence and that you will in the future recite exclusively for us so we can enjoy your passion and mastery over the prose. As we say Khuda Hafiz Shaykh, till we see you again, we pray that Allah, inshallah, increase your knowledge, give you and your family a long, healthy life so you can continue to propagate Islam. May you succeed in all your undertakings with the trust and faith in the one and only Allah who will grant yours and our wishes. Ameen. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
This is to all our listeners and community members at large. We thank you all for your emails, personal calls, and text messages regarding our SIIJLA presentation and programming. We truly appreciate your confidence in us. And I responded to all of you telling you that your active participation and interest has made this COVID-19 Muharram indeed a unique and memorable experience along with the Shaykh. Should any of you listeners be interested in sponsoring a majlis with a live speaker whom you want to hear or know of one that is available, please contact Brother Hasnain Haji, who will be a great facilitator. You have already seen his accomplishments so far. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you wish to contribute in any way for the next drive-by Niyaz, please contact Sister Sukaina, who will assist you in the preparations, as you have seen her, along with our other ladies team, bring you 3 drive-by tabarruks. They work hard to deliver the very best. Salawat. Allah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Please do not forget to send in your financial aid for the regular normal upkeep of our center. Husseiniya depends entirely on your contributions. In conclusion, we thank you all for motivating us to do better with your encouragement. May Allah bless us all and bless the USA. Assalamu alaikum. Fatiha.
Ahsan. Thank you, Dr. Ali. Appreciate it. We will now conclude with ziyarat, but before we do that, let's also recite 5 times Amin Yujibu for those that are sick in our family and around the world. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustarra iza da'ahu yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. With that, inshallah, that concludes our 12 nights of Muharram for the first Ashra. Further programming will become available as soon as we complete preparing it. So with that, inshallah, we will conclude with ziyarat. Shaykh Muraj, bismillah.
Just before, thank you so much for the kind words. It's been a pleasure entirely, and I look forward to connecting with the community individually as well, inshallah. Just to clarify, that wasn't my son, that was my youngest brother, Taqi Abbas. And now we pay attention to Ziyarah. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. Assalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah. Assalamu alayka ya Habib Allah. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayki ya Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidati Nisa al-Alameen. Assalamu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn wa Ali ibn al-Husayn wa awlad al-Husayn wa ashab al-Husayn. خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا سائر الشهداء كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي ولحجة بن الحسن. أجر الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyik.
Hudatan Hasan, Salawatuka alayhi wa ala alihi في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا محافظا قولا نافذا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه وكاتوا وتدعو فيها طويلا محمد يا الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه.
حيدري
يا علي.
يا علي
نعرة حيدري
يا علي
نعرة
يا علي.
صلوات الله محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. With that, ahsant everyone. With that, we conclude our program for tonight. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.